Good morning, afternoon or evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on where you're joining us from across the world. Thanks very much for joining a Payments Cards and Mobile webinar in association with GSEC Devrient. I'm Alex Rolfe, the Managing Director of Payments Cards Mobile, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. From myself and all the panelists, I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the early summer weather. There's a couple of housekeeping items just to get through before we get started. Firstly, this is a live event and we'll have a live Q&A session at the end. However, there is a chat function and we do encourage you to send your questions in as we're going along. If your question does relate to a specific topic or speaker, then please do note that down in the question so we can quickly reference back to that whilst we're answering those questions. Finally, on the housekeeping, all assets surrounding this event will be made available at the end of the show, meaning that you can share with your colleagues or review the information again at your leisure. Okay, so creating a phygital experience in banking is, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges facing the banking industry in the next few years. I think consumers prior to the pandemic were already moving to a blended experience of mobile and PC and physical branches, and the pandemic simply accelerated that need for omni-channel banking. As well as the channel, though, we now also have to factor in demography as well. This phygitization is not just a Gen Z thing, it's across the board, which makes a consistent experience from a bank perspective more challenging when factoring in across demography UX. In the UK, as well as other developed markets, I think it's pretty well documented that bank branch closures are accelerating. I think what is less obvious, and what we've just been discussing, is that the branches that are remaining are actually highly strategic and need to offer that consistent phygital experience, you know, the blend between digital and physical that the bank is aiming to create. To take a deeper dive into this subject, we produced, in partnership with GSEC Devrient, this webinar. There is also an accompanying report, which is available via both companies' websites, but will also be part of the package that we send out after the webinar. And it's very complementary to what we're talking about and very much worth a read. So this webinar aims to give a comprehensive overview of the opportunities surrounding phygitization with speakers from GSEC Devrient, Omax Pomois and Critical Software, as well as, I mentioned, the live Q&A session at the end. So here to walk you through these topics are three gentlemen who are experts in their field and subject matter. I'd like to introduce Rudiger Foot, Head of Payments 4.0 e-payments business at G&D.
Hello, everybody.
Christian Schultz, Digital Engineering Services at Critical Software.
Hello.
And Hugues Mercier, CEO of Omax Pomois, which is a neobank and part of the Archaea Group.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so the way we're going to run the webinar is to split it into three distinct sections, and we're going to start off with phygital. So we're going to start off with that word and where it comes from and how you see that phygital experience in the banking world today. Rudy, do you want to kick us off on that?
Sure. I mean, the term phygital has been used in the retail world for many years, right? Taking the best elements of e-commerce and combining them with the unique aspects of browsing or shopping in a brick and mortar store. And phygital uses a combination of physical elements and digital devices, platforms, technologies, and extended reality to offer unique, interactive, holistic experiences that allow users to feel stimulated and emotionally engaged. So I would say, in a nutshell, physical focuses on making what we call the 3 I's a reality. Immediacy, ensuring things happen at an exact moment in time. Immersion, the user is becoming a part of the experience. And interaction, to activate the physical and emotional part of the process. So that's how I would define it.
Thanks, Rudy. Hugues, what are your thoughts from a banking perspective?
From a banking perspective, I tend to agree with Rudy. Of course, I think people want the best of the two worlds, both physical and digital. One thing that really struck me, both as the CEO of my company and as a client and customer, because I'm obviously are. I mean, people do not want digital all the time, and I think that people want not necessarily less human interactions or face-to-face interactions. They want better ones, and this need for assistance or expertise have to be from a banking perspective carefully identified. Just to be there at the right moment, because it's not necessarily interesting to be there all the time, but it's mandatory to be there at the precise given time the customer or client need me. And having physical interactions such as your brand into the wallet of a client is important. I mean, a good example is card, and I will not give a lecture to GND on that matter, of course, but I mean, as a neobank, for me, I could easily do digital cards and push them via APIs on different mobile wallets. But it's key for me to have my brand on my card issued in the wallet of my customer, because it's a reminder, it's a memorabilia of my brand, of the use it can have with it, and it's still very physical. And we have never issued that many cards that in the last years, even for neobanks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Christian, what are your thoughts on this word phygital? How do you see that?
Well, it's basically all said. It's about bringing the both worlds together, the physical one and the digital world. On one hand, of course, with the purpose of generating a holistic view of the bank's customer, basically, but not from an only selfish perspective for the bank, but also to generate value, not only in terms of where you say personalization for the customer, but also to generate real value in providing customers the right offering at the right point in time. So basically when they need it, and also be selective on the channel that you're using for that one, basically. So for some topics, online might be the right one. For other ones, the physical world may be the right channel.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with that. The interaction with the bank, I think we've all been into a bank, but possibly not as recently as we might have liked, but that interaction can sometimes be perceived as a necessary evil or actually, not that interesting a thing to have to do, right? We might typically have to travel to go and do it, but it can be a bit dry. How do you feel that phygital interaction can create excitement and enhance the bank's brand? Hugh, maybe you take that one on to begin with.
Yeah, I think people come to us us in general, from my app to my online channel for two different reasons. First one, they just want to check. They want reinsurance. They just want to know how much they are spending, is their salary, did it arrive or whatever. It's just, it's casual information. And this must be real time. This must be transparent. This must be safe. It must be, 24/7. It's a commodity. And I think today, everyone, from brick and mortar to neobanks, everyone more or less offer this kind of services. What's different is when I have a specific request, when I want expertise, when I want, I don't know, a complex wire transfer to be done, when I want a mortgage, when I want to buy, investment or properties to prepare retirement or whatever. A complex problem for which I can become knowledgeable by browsing the internet, and I'm trying to confront this knowledge I gained through the expertise of an advisor. And this is where we have to, we banks, we have to step up, and because we have that expertise, and to be able to reassure the client and provide him with the right answer to the question at the time he wanted it. And that's this time frame is, to me, the challenge we are facing, so that it becomes not a necessary evil, but the opportunity to secure a client, to make him loyal, and to make him happy in the end of the journey. And for example, one of our answer, it's kind of a commodity, but it's not addressed much in the French market. We developed instant delivery, for example. You come to one of our pop-up store or one of our offices, and you can leave with an account and a card, a physical card, in less than 10 minutes. So you had an issue, you wanted a card, you wanted to travel abroad and have no FX or no withdrawal fees, and you have your card and you can pay with it. And that's becoming powerless because the client had a need and you just satisfied it in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's really, really complex to sort out in the end.
It's powerful stuff as well from a client perspective, right? It's a good experience that they're having. So so Christian, your thoughts? Can you make this exciting?
Yes, basically. So I would say, I personally, I mean, we are all customers of at least one bank typically, where I say I would get excited when I get surprised by my bank, basically. So as you mentioned, we all have a perception when going and visit a bank, where I say it will be a dry thing, it will be complicated, and so on and so forth. So bringing the channels again, what we talked about before, together, where you say you have an educated customer, they did their own research, they prepared for something, but still you hit that point where the complexity gets too much. And then having an appointment with one of the advisors in the bank, getting the right advice and facing somebody that is prepared, that knows already the background, what you were looking for, where certain parts of automation have already prepared documents, for example, so that you do not need to provide data which is already available. So adding real value to customers, that's, I believe, where the excitement can be created.
Okay, thanks, Christian. So really, we've had one example there of a sort of experience that a client has had, or indeed that's been delivered by a bank. Could you perhaps give us an example of a typical phygital customer journey from the kind of G&D perspective?
Sure. Coming back to what Hugo said before, how important the can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Coming back to what Hugo said before with the how important it is actually to have a token in the hand of the customer, right? In the form of a physical card. Let's take a look at the card issuance journey, for example. So we can let a bank client create their own individual payment card, with including the design in a mobile banking app when signing up for a new account. So that's the first digital experience for creating a physical card. And as a next step, this customer can get a virtual card right away to use it, for example, for online shopping in the time between the opening of the account and the shipment of the physical card. And while the physical card is being produced and shipped, there's updates regarding the card status that are sent securely via the app to the bank client. Then finally, the new card is delivered via mail or courier, and you can add a personal message with a targeted content that is personalized for that specific customer. Mm-hmm. And then even the QR code can take you to an augmented reality experience for activation of the card on your mobile to learn about the benefits of your plan that you sign up for. Now, during this process, the bank can unleash the creativity of the customer for a top-of-the-wallet effect and make use of the data they have available for that personalization to create a unique and personal customer bonding. So that would be one example on how you can bring the physical and the digital world together in the card issuing process.
Thanks, Rudy. Christian, from your perspective, do you see that differently? Or I guess the part of the cycle or chain that you're involved in, it looks slightly different. Do you have a different perspective on that?
No, I can agree with Rudy on it, where I say what his example actually shows. And yes, as an engineering company, we are in a different stage of the process typically involved. But what his example shows is it's a certain complexity in the process and how you can add value basically on top of that for the customers at the end of the day. So the very simple process is like transferring money from bank account A to bank account B. We are all used to that. There is not much of excitement around those things. But the typical phygital customer journey, in my opinion, requires a certain complexity where you need the touch points across the channels, where you need the different forms of interactions to generate that kind of a perfect experience for the customer.
Thanks, Christian. And I just want to stay with you just for a second. Looking at, I guess, the nearish term, right, the next few years, how do you see that phygital experience develop? Your clients, when they're coming to you, what are they looking for? What kind of questions are they asking? What type of stuff are they looking for you to develop?
Well, I mentioned already, for us as an engineering company, we are at a different point in time, I would say, involved in the process. So what we are confronted with very much with our clients, basically, are requests on getting the fundamentals right, I would say. So with the fundamentals, I mean either the whole IT landscape, the whole IT architecture, or data. I mean, there are a lot of players in the market who went through merger acquisitions, who sold part of their business, who divested here and there. So you have a highly fragmented data landscape, for example. So drawing conclusions from that data, which is for historic reasons maybe not in the best organized way, and then you have a legacy landscape in terms of IT on top. That's where we are focused most in, or when we are getting engaged in. Because if you don't fix those kind of a basics, it will be very hard delivering or taking the next steps in a real phygital experience when you cannot rely on the data and results that is providing. So how can you know and how can you advise your customer then later on in a seamless way throughout this process, basically, when you have the fundamentals spread across the organization. So for us, this is the key focus where we are confronted with right now in most of the cases. And I believe where there will still be a lot of focus on also in the next couple of years.
Yeah, okay. So I think really Christian there points out that you guys are at different stages of that development. What are your clients asking for on that basis, that sort of future-looking piece?
Yeah, definitely. I can subscribe to what Christian said before. And for us, from an end user perspective, we will see a much more personalized, interactive, and also fun customer experience based on intelligent usage of the data that the banks have at hand. So that can be, for example, invitations to real-world events that a customer is really interested in, or daily support in moving towards a more environmentally friendly lifestyle via the banking app. So from the bank's perspective, also reducing friction and optimizing resources, of course, is important. So the use of perfectly timed personal messages, in some cases, if it's done intelligently, chatbots and kiosks also, for example, that can take call center loops and waiting time out of the flow and create a very good user flow. So with G&D coming from the payment card business and at the same time expanding into digital solutions, we use our expertise to combine physical and digital worlds in the payment experience, basically. For example, we support quite a few of our Neobank customers in building a strong sustainability and eco-innovation strategy. At G&D, we combine the physical symbol of change in the shape of, for example, what we call Convigo Ocean plastic payment card, with digital solutions from our partners, Deconomy and Patch. So Deconomy helps consumers calculate their carbon and water footprint automatically in the banking app, and that in real time based on the purchasing transactions that the customers make in the real or virtual world. And Patch offers consumers a seamless way to offset the still unavoidable carbon emissions generated by their daily consumption or activity through impactful carbon removal projects. So these are some examples on where phygital and digital, physical and digital come together for a real phygital experience, and where we have worked together with our customers to add value to their clients.
Yeah, interesting also that you mentioned those two, the piece about carbon and I guess it's becoming more and more important in the mind of the client. Okay, so we're going to move on to our second sort of major topic here. So we're moving away from that sort of word phygital and phygitization, and we're going to start to look at the banks and their customers' needs. Christian, I'd like to stay with you again here. How do you see the needs of your clients changing? I think we've talked a little bit about that already previously, but is there less human interaction and more automation required? Would you agree with that as a statement?
Yes and no. I would say it's more about the right timing actually, and it's about the value each channel adds to the customer basically at the end of the day. So if we take the whole mortgage business as an example, where you're saying most of us or some of us at least experienced that applying for a mortgage, buying a house or a flat, for example. So it gets very soon very complex. So I say we're definitely trust and an advisor who can explain you the different kind of options in this complex process would be needed. So there is definitely a place when it gets complex for human interaction because it is about trust. The other component on the automation side again is even though you are a customer of that particular bank, in a lot of cases, you're confronted with a lot of paperwork afterwards where you have to provide and fill in data manually into that process, into forms, data that is already available in the bank. So there is the perfect place for automation, basically, having those forms pre-filled, having them electronically signed at the end of the day. And the last part of the project, which is extremely difficult, in my opinion, to explain to customers, is why they need for some weeks for a risk assessment being done, whereas other players outside of the financial world also do risk assessments and are much faster with that. So I don't know about other markets, but here in Germany, for example, a risk assessment can easily take 4, 5, 6 weeks until you get a decision on your mortgage. And that in a very volatile market as we have it right now, if we can shorten that time and automate whatever is possible, plus having the human interaction where it generates trust and value and advice, that's the perfect balance we need to find, basically.
Yeah. Now, we were chatting earlier on, and I think you've got a sort of reasonably strong view on this. Do we require more automation, or do you think there has to be that right balance, as Christian has mentioned there?
I think I will quote Christian. I will say that yes and no. No, I fully agree because what I said earlier about these kind of contradictions between customers' expectations. There is on one end, ease of use, perfect UX, perfect UI, like the neobanks experienced that was developed over the last 5 to 8 years, and it's really set up a standard, and it's really positive for the customers, for the market and the industry, and so that's the ease of use, and that's a strong requirement from clients. And on the other hand, there is this quest for expertise and advisory, which requires time, requires the right person to answer the call or be there at the meeting or whatever at the desired moment, and it's a bit opposed in terms of issues for us bankers. And on the other hand, the people want trust. They want to be able to trust their bank, the people they are sending their data and their money, and to provide them with the right advisory or the right solution or the right tool at the desired moment. And these requests, these demands are kind of hard to satisfy at the given time, because I don't always have an expert available at 2 a.m, to answer someone that is, not asleep and having a mortgage issue, for example. So one of the solution we found is, on one hand, trying to have automation, for basic requirements with a chatbot that provides very basic solutions. The solution is identified as being given by a chatbot and not pretending to be human, because we don't have to take our clients for stupid, because it's a different answer. And if it's becoming more complex, it turns out to an advisor that will provide a more elaborate solution. And if it's very much more complex, such as tax optimization issues, retirement preparation, complex saving products, and so on, then our answer is, okay, we acknowledge your request, and someone will call you back. Mm-hmm. Because we cannot do otherwise. And having the client, just acknowledging them that we've seen their mark of interest, and their request is not entirely satisfactory, not saying that, but it's part of their reassurance that this will be taken care of. And that's what we try to do. And this complex relationship to time is what we have to struggle with when dealing with our client interactions, because clients want everything now and then and the perfect solution, and it's not possible. I mean, for manpower issues, for technical issues, and so on. So we have to adapt and to manage the kind of frustration of the client. But I've never had any clients complaining about the fact that we acknowledge his demand, mm-hmm. and we'll come back to him later on. I mean, later on being tomorrow, the day after. I mean, not in 3 months' time.
Yeah, sure. Now you mentioned the word data there reasonably early on in your answer, and you as a bank, you hold these vast amounts of data on your customers' transactions. How are you able to use this to add value to the clients? Like, do you have a plan for that at the moment?
Yeah, we do. I mean, there are different type of data. I mean, you have the regulatory KYC data, your name, surname, address, and so on. I basically know you. I have a proof of your ID, of where you live. I'm probably one of the most efficient industry to really identify you. There are the data that I can extrapolate. I mean, your payment data and so on. I can guess some of your habits. And there are the data that I basically don't know what you really purchased. I mean, I can assess that. I can see that you spent 100 euro, you paid with a credit card in a retail store, but I don't know exactly what you purchased. And this difference of trust into this data make me available to try to predict what would be the best solution for you at a given time. And that's one of the goal of the company I'm leading, is really to provide you with the best solution at the given time. And that's where we struggle to build a model and to try to become predictive. And people are not afraid that we are doing that. They trust us by doing that, and so they are not rejecting our recommendations. So that's for the predictive side. And on the automation side, because of the data I know, your name, address, and so on, people demand, really, I'm really strong, that these data are already filled in your questionnaire forms or whatever. They don't want to, because they are time efficient and aware of the time it takes. They don't want, as a customer, I don't want that the form is blank. I want it to fill with my name, my address, the name of my spouse, whatever. I mean, you have the data, you know that, and I trusted you, and you have it. So this automation purpose can be easily done. I mean, it's not creating additional business. It's avoiding frustration. Yeah. And on the other hand, we try to to make value out of the data, we have to propose the right solution at the right moment.
Sure. Christian, I guess this is you dealing with his client data, so his actual customers. I guess you're dealing with data in a different way. Your customers are companies. How or do you approach it differently? I mean, do you have a view on how you can use that data to do something interesting or exciting, or is it just something you have to be extremely careful with?
Well, of course, you always have to be extremely careful on data. There are regulatory aspects to it, so you cannot use all the data for whatever you want and so on. That's clear to all of us. I would like to add on what Vic said, where you say on the automation side, where you say pre-filling a form with data is kind of the minimum level, I would say, that normally would be the expectation. I would actually go one step ahead in terms of automation and say speeding up processes and automating decision making to the extent possible, so that only people need to make own decisions in exceptional cases, but otherwise decisions are made automatically based on the available data. That would add instant value again to customers, because they expect a timely response. Usually they provide their input in a timely manner, and they expect a timely decision and not a couple of weeks later on. So from that perspective, automation would be key here. The other part to it where I see value can be generated is basically around hyper-personalization. So I mean, we talked about data available in banks, where you say, my bank knows my income situation, and they even know my spending situation. Yes, there are regulatory parts to it, again, how to use that data. But on the other hand, having a certain level of income every month, and then a bank suggesting you a consumer credit for 1,000 euro is maybe not the most personalized offering. So I say, on the other hand, seeing the outflow from the bank account, noticing that there must be an investment elsewhere, coming up with personalized offerings for that particular customer. For example, on investments, on options, how to invest, to keep that money inside the bank and work with that one, that actually generates value for both parties.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Christian, for that. Okay, so you are effectively running a neobank. I know a bit of the background, but it's been set up outside of a larger financial entity that does lots of different things inside people's lives, to do with their finances and insurances, etc. Do you think, from your perspective as a neobank, that you ought to enhance the physical interaction with your customers? And if so, from that perspective, of most people would assume that neobanks are predominantly app-based only and are only provided over the internet. So just coming back to that physical interaction, do you think there should be more of it, and how do you go about doing that if you're a neobank?
That's a tough question. As I mentioned earlier, I think customers want better interactions, so not more, but better ones. So every time I touch physically, or I mean, not none over an app, a client, it must be a better experience. When he receives a card, I mean, the mailing must be nice. My card must look better than the one of the competitor. It must be a differentiating factor. If someone enters one of my offices and asks to open an account and leave with a card instantly issued, this must be done efficiently with someone that gives him the willingness to become a loyal and engaged customer. Mm-hmm. So we need to be excellent at this very specific touch point, because we have far less opportunity than a traditional retail branch which is open from 9 to 6 on a daily basis, and everyone knows it, and you enter because you were passing in front and you needed whatever, you had a question, so on. So when someone tried to reach us or get in touch with us, we have to make this experience memorable. And for example, there is a French law that passed in the last 2 months, making it much more easy to renegotiate the life insurance you get on your mortgage. And we were trying to reposition ourselves, to make it easier for people, for customers to change their insurance. And you end up in massive savings. I mean, over 10 to 25 years of mortgage, you can save up to 25,000 euros over the life of the mortgage. So it's quite significant. In high inflation rates, as we know, it's very, very opportunistic for the clients. And it's something that is complex because it reaches to the how you are insured, what will happen if you passed away, what happens if your spouse die, what happens in terms of taking care of the mortgage of and so on. So there are basic questions that are easily answered over the phone than in front of a form. I mean, I can fill anything with data I can get from DSP2, and I can fill some stuff, but not the precise detail. Because when you arrive to complex mortgage with different maturity, all in all, ending up in 25 duration, for example, you need to have someone that has been trained, to see, okay, so this is the interest, this is your principal, this is the insurance, let's split up, let's analyze how it's done. And having that analysis done over the phone between the advisor and the clients is actually proving to be very efficient because it's reassuring. And the client has the feeling that he has been taken care of. So I'm not just selling a product, I'm reassuring him. And banking is also about trust. So I need to be very good at my touch points. So not talking about physical, because I'm not that physical. I would rather call it touch points.
Yeah, I agree. And Rudy, I think from your perspective, you're working with neobanks. You're a client of neobanks. What is your view on that? Do you feel like you miss that physical interaction? Do you feel like that they have to try and progress that somehow, or what are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really great is that you can give us some real life examples already, right? From the experience that he has, and it might be obvious, but just to state it very clearly, a neobank client is phygital, so existing both in the physical and the digital world. So this way, you need to address both aspects. And he or she uses, so the customer uses a physical payment card and several devices for communication and to access services. And while neobanks are typically founded on digital solutions, as Hugues pointed out, the human physical aspect is still extremely important. So how do we see neobanks create and enhance a phygital experience? Well, basically, we see that they start with the customer's pain points, looking at data collected across the different channels. So feedback from delighted and, more importantly, dissatisfied customers, and, for example, app reviews. And then based on this, they think about what can be solved via a phygital approach and create a detailed customer journey map, exactly addressing those points along the journey where the more physical, if you want to call it that, interaction is necessary. And then make the customer part of the innovation process, include user-generated content to improve products and offerings. The next level to that is then to create community-driven solutions, even active communities that can be tapped to explore new opportunities for the brand's influence to share knowledge, cross-sell, and gain even more loyal customers.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you. So you mentioned innovation there, and we're now going to move on to our third and final sort of major topic here, which is technology. Obviously, the whole conversation has been loosely based around the technology that allows us to even talk about this word phygital. But I think we haven't directly addressed new technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and augmented reality. I think that we have discussed this human interaction and will there be space for that in the future? And I think you guys as panelists are all saying, that needs to be there, and that the client wants it. Us as human beings want that. But so, what are your general views on this type of technology? You in particular, I would imagine you've implemented some of these things or are potentially thinking about implementing them. Again, artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality. Where do you see those sitting in your technology developments for now and indeed the future?
That's a very, very, very interesting topic. I mean, we are basically using AI and machine learning as on day-to-day operations. We are not there on the metaverse yet, while still looking. But to me, they're just tools. I mean, it's a bit blunt, but they are very useful tools to be more efficient, more to the point, to do more with less, and so on. It's about efficiency, prediction, customer satisfaction at the end of the day. But what this technology, as of today, don't get me wrong, because things can go and switch fast, they are not providing empathy into the interactions. And clients and humans are social animals that need to interact with empathy. And an advisor, a good one, understands the problem of its clients and tries to solve it and try to reassure him or her. And as of today, the tools that you were mentioning to me are not satisfying in terms of delivering that empathy and that care of the client. They provide solutions.
Yeah.
And they are very helpful to humans to be more efficient and to better satisfy our customer. But they cannot do all by themselves. Otherwise, it would be a wonderland. I mean, you would have basically no more people, and everything would be from scratch and interact with customers and so on. So, not very fun, because that's
I think
makes the job fun. But
there's a movie all about that. Doesn't end well. Christian, I mean, are you guys integrating this stuff? Are you getting lots of requests from your clients to put this as part of the integrations?
Well, it's always part, or it's not always, but it's always a topic, I would say. And adding on what Hugues said again here, where you say, it's, of course, AI, for example, is a nice tool, I would say, increasing efficiency. But on top of that, it can also be a tool adding value, basically, to customers at the end of the day. So, just giving you an example, processing automatically documents that were handwritten, forms that were filled in handwritten format, where you say with the detection part of it, you can, when you reach or when you don't reach a certain level of certainty that the document was written in the correct way, you can, for example, send or trigger a message to the customer at the end of the day automatically to clarify between two options what is the right text that was written there in that field, for example, which adds instant value to the customer, because we, of course, need to make sure they know they are talking to a bot at that point. Yes, we've mentioned that one, but still it adds value to the customer because they have this sense of being important and being taken care of at the end of the day. And another example, before we started the call, we talked about briefly, was actually where you say that there are even chatbots, at least in first pilot projects, being trained in detecting the tone of voice, basically, of a customer. So with the sole goal, is this person I'm now chatting with angry, unhappy? So let him or her be moved on to an agent to talk to a human being. So instead of being people hanging around in a chat for minutes and getting even more annoyed, use it to create value. Yes, that person still is unhappy, but they feel be taken care of. So it again adds value there. So for those things, we can combine actually the use of AI, machine learning, and human interaction actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rudy, the GSEC Devrient view, I mean, I think you have separate departments that are looking at these things as individual entities. Maybe you could give us an indication of what G&D are working on.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I can say is maybe we can summarize it with, for me, the key points are human first for creating a phygital customer journey. So the customer is at the center of our strategies, not pushing a technology to the customer, but understanding really how can we add value. The second point is to enhance the continuum around different channels to make sure that you have a consistent and coherent experience across different channels that a customer might be using. And the third one is to understand and integrate the contextualized usage of technology by consumers, really understand how people work with technology, again, instead of pushing a certain technology to them. And in this context, new technology enables then new services, but the customer needs to be always at the center. And that means that the human interaction needs to be integrated where it adds value and leads to a great customer experience. For inspiration, I mean, Hugo already mentioned it, we can take a look at how fintechs and also banks now are conquering the metaverse, right? So in addition to dozens of fintechs being active in this space, HSBC signed a partnership with the Sandbox. JP Morgan is present on the Decentraland platform. And I have to say right now, the experience is quite basic, to say the least. But it can be a test ground, a proving ground for new technology and see how we can really add value for this experience. So let's not underestimate the potential of the metaverse, also in terms of the emergence of new ownership and asset classes, virtual rental agreements, or mortgages on metaverse real estate, right? So there's really new business models shaping up, and step by step, solutions provided by fintechs and banks will become an integral part of this immersive phygital experience. I'm really interested in how this is moving forward. And I mean, as for us, we use artificial intelligence in production, for example, even, right? We use it. We use augmented reality. I mentioned it before to help our customers build an experience for their bank clients when signing up to a bank account or when a new card is being delivered, right? So we're definitely using this new technology, but I mean it's a starting point for us now to look into how can we enhance these use cases, and we're working very closely together with our bank customers there in particular and the Neobank customers to look at the points in the customer journey where it makes sense to add this technology to add efficiency, and as Uga said, make it a better experience, not more technology, but adding a better experience through technology.
Yeah, I think that's right. But the client being at the heart of it. So I have a question here, which I think I think we can make it reasonably short because we've covered it off, right? Or by and large, I would say across the panel here, we agree that the bank branches are still required. But I'm interested to get your perspective. On if you put your goggles on to look into the future, what does the bank branch of the future look like? I mean, as I say, we've discussed around this, but is there anything that we might have missed, or is there anything that you see technologically, or just the sort of human need that you would say, well, what we're looking at is this? What do you see as potentially being that bank branch of the future?
Well, I wish I could be very assertive because I would make lots of money selling my prediction. My personal feeling or gut feeling is that on one hand, clients would expect similar experience in branches as on their mobile app. I mean, smooth, just for basic commodity or quick question, pop in, get out, it's done, settled, no friction points. Voila, it's casual, a regular store, basically. And on the other hand, and coming back to that kind of dual time perspective, you must have, I think, strong expertise, and you expect the expert on the mortgage, on the insurance, on this, on that, available, not necessarily all the time, but you go there for a very specific need. And the challenge for the retail network we have internally, not in my company, but in my group, I think, is to manage both these casual banking on one side and expertise banking on the other, because expertise became more and more available on the internet, and you don't want to be taken for a fool. I mean, if you have a precise question, you expect a precise answer by someone that is more knowledgeable than you. Otherwise, you wouldn't go for ask. And sometimes banking experience can be, I think, in retail banking, disappointing as of today on that specific matter. So that's a room for improvement, I guess. Yeah. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Christian, from your perspective, is there anything that we've missed about this? What might that bank branch of the future look like? Are there requests that you get all the time, or that you're starting to see creep in, that you start to think, actually, I haven't seen that before, that might be there to be developed in the next 2 or 3 years?
No, not really. I can mainly agree with what Hugues said. Maybe, and that's my personal opinion again, maybe also the answer lies a bit in other industries. So when we see the concept of flagship stores of the one or other tech giant, also in the car industry, where you can in the flagship stores where you can deal quickly with very easy things, but when you need a specialist advice, there's also somebody available, or if you need a training on sustainable investment, for example. There could be this kind of offerings on top of that one, adding value. So I'm not sure if it is about really reinventing the wheel, or if it is looking across the borders to other industries, how they deal with similar kind of a situations and needs from their customer side.
Yeah, sure. I think actually banking has done not a bad job of that, actually, of taking some of the best practices from other industries. But okay, so we're getting a little bit short on time. I do just want to touch on one final subject, and that's pardon me, that's looking at the role of open banking and APIs. So Christian, if you just could kick us off and give us a few thoughts on how you see open banking and the APIs that are associated with that developing in the future.
Well, for me personally, it's an enabler for a whole ecosystem idea, basically. Where I say it's again, I mentioned other industries before. When we look into the telecom world, for example, 10, 15 years ago, they were afraid being reduced to just transporting basically bits and bytes around the world, basically, and kind of where I say when we draw the parallels to the banking world, where I say it's about moving money from A to B across the bank accounts. But when we think about an open ecosystem, I think it will enable banks to facilitate that kind of an ecosystem, to connect different kind of players in the market. Is it the retailer, if we think about embedded finance, or is it a fintech, basically, to generate additional value and create this kind of happiness and customer satisfaction with their existing customers, actually. So instead of being afraid of losing customers, actually opening and taking on the role of facilitating this ecosystem. And for that, I see open banking as the enabler, actually.
Mm-hmm. And Rudy, I guess a final word from you, but before we wrap up for a few questions, again, your thoughts on what G&D are doing with their clients around open banking and APIs.
Yeah. So maybe since Christian already talked about open banking, let me focus on the APIs. So we do see a strong growth in the use of external APIs supporting the integration with business partners. For our customers, we have introduced a quite comprehensive API-based development portal platform, which allows our customers to connect with us for card issuance and digital payment. And this allows our customers and partners to keep up with the changing expectations of their end users and make their platforms also future-proof. Now, our platform is securely hosted in the cloud, and all solutions provide connectivity to our global personalization side. So that's basically how it works. And we continue to work closely with our customers to deliver the right set of APIs, and we're continuously improving those so that we can revolutionize the card issuance services and payment solutions, right from the time a cardholder places an order for their card to providing real-time card delivery status, activation, usage, and then throughout the renewal process as well. And in this way, I see really the best possible digital customer journey that can be created in all of the contexts that we described before.
Yeah, okay, super. So, okay, well, we have a few minutes left of the hour. Let's take a look at the chat and see if anything's come in. So we have a question here. It doesn't say who it's open to. I would imagine it's for you, Hugo. It says you have introduced innovative payment cards in the market, e.g. metal cards and eco-innovative cards, although that does also relate to what you said earlier on, Rudy. Could you tell about your motivation and experience? Anyone want to take that one on?
Yeah, I'll leave the rest to Rudy. We try to differentiate and to provide a different experience to our clients than our competitors. And 10 years ago, when I began working in payments, everyone was saying, well, card is dead. Basically, plastic is dead. It will be a mobile phone and contactless and so on. Even if it's booming, it's not the vast majority of payments that are made via mobile, but it's improving. And we have never issued that many cards, physical cards. And plastic is one thing, and differentiating on metal is another, because it's a step up in terms of positioning for ourselves and the clients. It's very interesting because it becomes a status. It's the natural evolution of the traditional black card to me. And on the other hand, you have these new trends about bamboo, wood, or recycled PVC. I would leave the wood on the corner it should stay, because I absolutely don't believe into that product, because it's not a durable product, which then becomes counter efficient to the purpose it's supposed to serve. Because payment is about reliability and durability, and with cards that are supposed to last 3 to 5 years for some extent, you cannot do that with wood or paper. Recycled cards, on the other hand, recycled PVC cards are more interesting, because it's a first small step to try to improve stuff in the pockets of our customers. And what we'll try to work, but I think Rudy would have more insights about that, is to work the end of the life cycle of the card. Because, we have to remind that a card is basically an antenna, a battery, a microchip, a magnetic stripe, sometimes an hologram, and the plastic on it. So it's a very complex product. So if you want to recycle it properly, it's not just about putting some wood instead of plastic. That's bullshit. It's really about how to deconstruct it properly, and we've been working with that, and I expect a significant moves ahead on that matter, because it's where we have the most benefit for the global.
Okay, thank you. Rudy, we have probably 30 seconds left. Anything final to say from your side?
No, I think I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Hugues, Christian, and yourself for the input on the not only on the phygital context overall, but also talking more about the cards and the digital aspects to it in particular. And I think for this environmental topic, also what Hugues has just mentioned. That would call for another round of this discussion probably, because there's really so much going on and so much dynamics around eco-innovation and sustainability right now, and it's really interesting how again here the digital and the physical world have to come together, right? Whether it's efficiency of servers, for example. Or whether it's the recycling of cards that we're definitely very actively working on.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to thank you all as well. It's been a very expert panel. There's been some very interesting exchanges and some thoughts behind this, and I hope that from an audience perspective, they can see that this is something that is definitely taking hold. This is something that people are really thinking about. In Hugues' case, they're actually actively developing and deploying this stuff. I guess the same from Christian and Rudy. So from my perspective, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who joined. As I mentioned earlier on, we'll be editing this and it'll be made available for you to listen to again and share. And we'll also make sure that the associated report that goes with it will be sent out. So gents, thank you for your time and much appreciated.
Many thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.